was a hypo, and I'm like, welcome to Comics League Movie Night. I am Jared, and today we are discussing the Watchmen animated movies. We're doing both parts because I'm not splitting this up.
No, that's one story. Come on.
Yeah, it's one story. There's no reason not to. It's why when we inevitably cover the Crisis movies, that's just gonna be one stream. Anyway. Yep. So we're covering, yeah, exactly. I have multiple books. So I have, obviously I got Doomsday Clock, Watchmen, and I got the companion book. Yeah, that's
absolute. And all of Before Watchmen and issues.
Now, here's what you guys got to understand about Watchmen to begin with, to set the stage. This was the book where people started to take comic books seriously.
One of them, yeah.
One of them, because there were a few of them coming out at the time, but it's to the point where this book is a college course, literally.
Yep. Because
I feel sad I went to a school that didn't offer that, because I would take the crap out of that class.
Yep. But, and now let's get the elephant out of the room. How does this relate to the Snyder version? They're both, I say this, between the two of them, you would have a complete version.
They're different. And you know what? It's like they're two different things. This one is going for a more comic accurate version, which I'm going to get this out of the way. I think that JMS should not have been, well, this is going to be accurate to the comic. I think that was kind of snooty, but however, I'm like, okay, that's fine if that's the version you're going for, because inevitably people were going to ask, why are you making this when we already have Snyder's movie?
Now, here's what I think. This was a definite, given some of the cheapness and having like multiple actors doing the same character, multiple characters per actor and all that. I do think this was a bit of we need to keep having work.
Yeah, exactly. And now, what I will say, let's start with the art style. The art style actually looks like a comic book, and I really like that.
It really looks like Gibbons artwork given to a 2.5D style.
Which I love when they do that, because they've done that with like Superman, Batman, Public Enemies, and Apocalypse and stuff, where they legit like almost page to screen recreate the entire like art style in the animation, which I'm like, okay, that works.
I still love how when they did Killing Joke for the art style, they admitted we can't do Brian Bolland, but let's go for an artist who's similar to him and go off of that.
Which is mostly Bruce Timm, right?
No, it wasn't Bruce Timm's style, but I don't remember who it was. It was some other artist style they went, but I got rewatched it behind the scenes for it. But they
still
made
work.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and I guess they got the style pretty close.
Yeah, it still looked like let me put it this way, it's close enough that you know what they're doing. But with this, all right, so this one, so here's the advantage of doing an animated movie. You can do literally everything in the comic, because one of the biggest differences between the live action movie and the comic is that at the end, instead of like a big instead of like a squid monster attacking the society to unite everyone, it's a giant Dr. Manhattan explosion.
And they decide, but that also led to some things like, technology hasn't progressed as much because it's being withheld, so we can put the blame on Manhattan. Yeah,
exactly. And it's like, okay, that's kind of cool. I do like how this anime movie also kept the brutality of the thing. It's still, because again, with like a cartoon, you have is it going to be as intense? As soon as I see people's arms getting sawed off in the prison scene, I was like, yeah, this is. Although I will say, I like the reading of "You're locked in here with me" more in the live action movie. That they just sold it a lot better.
Oh, great! Again, now. Not against the actors here. The voice actors are professional actors and everything at work. I will look at it this way. This is a bit of an abridged version still. It's still abridged.
Yeah, and to be clear, again, it's different, but it's not like it's bad different. And what's up, Cameron? It's more like it's new. It's like, okay, it's like, I'm glad it exists.
Like I said, if you have between the two of these, you do have a complete adaptation between the two of the Zach and this one. The stuff that's missing from one mostly is in the other.
Yeah, and now the other thing I want to talk about is the costumes, because here's the thing. This one has the comic costumes, as opposed to in the movie, Zach kind of modernized them a little bit. I have no preference either way. It's fine with me.
I know. And we got to keep Captain Manhattan. The Metropolis. Metropolis.
Oh, yeah. So there were a few characters where I'm like, I don't remember you. And I go,
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he was there, but they just completely cut him out. And yet, if you saw the TV show, he was there.
Let me tell you this: the minute they get to the scene where Blake R words Silver like I mean Silk's
assault.
I was like, okay, how are you gonna play this? And they just don't really do it. So I'm like, okay, thank you, because I was wondering how you guys gonna do this.
Right.
The other thing that the animated movie does well is it integrates the Black Freighter comic party. I like how it has like even the all the DC logoing and everything like that. Like it's an actual comic. I appreciate that. And basically the way the Black Freighter is treated in this and in the book is that it's essentially an analogy to what's going on currently. And by the way, Brandon C says, I like Watchmen. I like what it did for comics in the mainstream, but Alan Moore has become so disenchanted by the superhero genre, perhaps justified, but he's kind of bashing what made him. That is true. I understand to a certain degree why he's upset. I get it. It's just like...
You expect this thing to totally redesign everything. Why do you think he tried to reconstruct comics afterwards?
Yeah, but here's the other thing that's kind of weird. He gets upset whenever they adapt his work, and I go, bro... This is the way capital is. You don't own these characters yet. You could if they stop printing it, which let's be honest.
Well, now they're never going to.
Are DC? I was about to say, are DC ever gonna not publish Watchmen anymore?
Like I said, originally I get when that contract was done, that was the standard thing, and yeah, I'm pretty sure even DC were going to be happy to do it, but the trades took off, not the issues.
Yeah,
the trades did.
I can't name a single book he's done. Well, actually, he's the one.
Supreme. Yep.
Well, here's the fun fact about Alan Moore. He technically invented the Legend of Blackest Night.
Yep.
Yeah, he technically started because that. So what Jeff
did was meant that was meant to lead into Twilight of the Superheroes, but yeah.
As far as I know, so wasn't Twilight the Superheroes supposed to be this if he got to use DC characters?
No, kind of. It was meant to be his own crisis event, but the whole thing was basically it was more his Dark Knight Returns for the whole DCU.
Yeah, because for those that don't know, Watchmen was originally he was supposed to use. He wanted to use like all the Justice League essentially.
No. It was the Charlton characters. But then they realized if you do it was Watchmen. But then they were like, wait, if you do this, we want to bring them in. There's not going to be anyone left.
Yeah, so it's like create original characters,
which he was happy to do.
And to be clear, they're great characters. The reason why they're still around, like Rorschach is a freaking badass.
Some of the characters outshine basically replaced in people's minds the original Charlton. The only ones that haven't are Peacemaker now currently, but for a while, Comedian replaced him, and obviously Blue Beetle stands out enough from Night Owl, but and Captain Atom. Well, you look at like Silk Spectre replacing I actually forgot who she replaced, but. Obviously, Rorschach and the Question, thankfully, can I still remember that question saying Rorschach sucks because he tried to do the Rorschach method and it didn't work well for him. He got beat up.
Yeah, I love it. But yeah, so this one, again, and when it came out, he didn't know that, obviously him and DC didn't know how big this book was going to be, particularly when it was collected later, because as Robert and I were talking about before we went live, this really didn't take off when it was in the individual issues.
There was delays and everything. This is one of the books that makes the argument for people like Jeff Loeb who say, it doesn't matter when it's released. Once it's done, that's all people matter. It matters, and they're not wrong. Dark Knight Return, late. This book, late. Camelot 3000, late. Do people talk about their lateness? No.
It's like Doomsday Clock as well, but there's a lot of problems with Doomsday Clock, and we'll talk about that eventually. But here's the thing: there's a reason why this is on. This was one of Time Magazine's 100 best English language novels.
It's the only comic that got on there.
Yeah. Again, it doesn't say graphic novels. It just says novels.
Yeah, it's the only one that got on there. And yeah, again, more never expected it, but I just don't get why you expect DC to just let it go out print so he can keep it. It's like, they'd be idiots.
Yeah, I'm like, that's not how a business works. If the book takes off and starts selling well, of course you're going to capitalize on that.
Yep, but he eventually felt they were doing it to spite him when it's like, maybe a tiny smidge, but nowhere near that much.
Yeah, and I could see kind of his argument with like Doomsday Clock and then making it, well, oh yeah, your universe sucks because it doesn't have Superman in it.
I don't think it was so much that, so much as the comparing the deconstructing nature of it.
No, but what I mean is that from his perspective, I can kind of see where that would come from. It's obviously not that if you actually read Doomsday Clock,
right?
But it's interesting. So with the animated movie, so the other thing they do is they have, again, all the comic accurate costumes, including Night Owls. In terms of which one I prefer in terms of Night Owl, I mean, let me put it this way. Zach's works for live action. This one works for
animation. 2D-ishness, yeah.
2D-ish, yeah, because that would not work in live action. I don't think it would.
Nope, it's too goofy. It's the reason why even the original Blue Beetle, Ted Core Blue Beetle, would be a little goofy.
Yeah,
unless I want him to be armored like Jaime, but I like some middle ground.
They could probably do a little bit in the metal bit because, yeah, if it's a dude in like a spandex suit, like a basic looking spandex suit, it's like, yeah, who are you?
Exactly.
Yeah, but so a lot of this. So again, it goes more into the more comic accurate route, and this demonstrates something that's very interesting. Pikachu says, remember how Superman told Earth 2 Superman Infinite Crisis that a perfect Earth does not need a Superman?
Yep, we went over that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. So you could say this is not a perfect Earth.
Nope, it's not a perfect Earth, and yet there is no perfect Earth.
Yeah, I love that moment of realization where he goes, if it's a perfect, my world was perfect, it wouldn't need a Superman then.
And then I looked, it's like, ugh. That, people, I remember there used to be the meme saying, owned. Owned.
Yeah, exactly. He got super owned.
Yep, but yeah, again, but throughout this, like, we did keep, again, some moments that were removed are kept over, and some of the other details that were, again, they trimmed out some stuff, like the whole thing was Manhattan being hounded by reporters. They truncated that.
Yeah, and the other thing is like you could see the parts that like Zach expanded, like the whole warehouse, like the whole apartment fire rescue scene. It's a little bit more than it was in the comic.
Yep, but yeah, like I said, like for example, we know that Manhattan teleported all those reporters, but we don't actually see the part of him like, leave me alone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
So again, there's stuff that is truncated. And like I said, though, that's why I look at this as a companion movie to the Zack Snyder one, because like I said, stuff that what one cut, the other kept.
Now, I will say this, the part that I don't think this movie did well was the whole, it's 1953, I feel sad or something like that in that part, because when they're overlapping each other, because I remember in the comic it doesn't do that, and in the movie it doesn't do, the live action movie doesn't do that. It's a little easier to follow.
I will just say that it's one thing that I do feel both adaptations have one character that the adaptation has screwed over. It's the psychiatrist.
Yeah.
Both movie, Snyder, Zach, and this screwed him over.
Because doesn't he go crazy?
Well, not so much crazy, so much he goes from an optimistic man to completely cynical, and it ruins his marriage and everything.
Yeah, but then again, when you get to this, if you're under a like time limit, if you will, there's only so much that you can put in there.
And I will say they do at least a little bit more with the guy here compared to Zach.
Yeah, it's like you see more of like the effect that Rorschach's story has on him.
Exactly, just a little bit by comparison.
And you see more in the flashback of where the Rorschach thing came from, and I go, okay, that's actually really cool. I like.
Oh yeah, because I always did like that how they connected to that one woman who got murdered, and everyone just stared. That happened.
Yeah, exactly.
They just added that she actually was getting addressed by a Manhattan-style fabric dress. That was the flowingness.
Cynically depressed, but then he also becomes a vigilante.
No. His son does.
No, his son does because the psychiatrist dies when the creature emerges, right?
Yeah. And that was the bit where his son in Doomsday Clock said his parents died in a hugging embrace, but then somehow Ozzy knows, nope, they died hating each other. It's like, now granted, I can believe Ozzy observed everything, so he probably saw that.
Yeah,
but still.
By the way, great characters. Let's hope they give the same treatment to Supergirl by making it less ridiculous than the trash can Tom King did with. Again, so I'm not going to address the ripoff part, even though I do agree. But what I'm going to say this is that, and Robert and I were talking about this last night, as a matter of fact, likely what they're going to do with that, they'll tone down the drunkenness because here's the thing.
Crypto in this. Crypto is connected to kids already.
And here's the thing, Robert. If they're because presumably they're gonna go on the whole this character is a positive influence for girls and they can't encourage drunkenness.
Like I said, even if they do ever be drunk, it's gonna be played for laughs.
Yeah, again, I could see it be in the beginning when we first see her because we know there's a scene in the bar and stuff, and then she's definitely not going to be cursing up a storm. I know that.
No.
There's no way they're going to do that. Which, to a degree,
or if they did, it's going to be alien cursing.
Yeah, like Flarkin or like Bastich.
Yeah.
Let me tell you this: as much as I loathe Tom King, I am actually interested to see how they adapt that book, to see what they change.
And Jay put it best. There aren't that many Supergirls stories to adapt that are her solo.
I mean, they could have done New 52, but
even that's still too tied with Superman directly.
I mean, and they don't want to do the origin because presumably she still shows up.
Pika, when? That never happened. Wait, when? Was that in before Watchmen thing? Because otherwise, no. The man never tried to be a vigilante. There was a point where he was trying to help someone that was, getting into an argument and a fight, but that wasn't being a vigilante. Yeah, that was just trying to be a good person.
Exactly. But it's one of those things. So I'm like, okay, that's.
But yeah, that's what we think they're doing. That King's story is one of the few that's you can easily adapt.
Yeah, it's like she's on her own. She has her own adventure. I get it. Do I like it? No, but it was close enough. But you can't represent it for as fact, Pika. I hope Supergirl is a mega hit, so Tom King leaves comics. That's not going to lead to him leaving comics, though.
No, it won't.
Well,
why would a lot of people still do both?
I think what Brandon means is that if it's super popular, he'll start doing more movies and then just leave just slowly leave the that's not going to happen though.
Not going to happen. He'll always find time.
As much as, let me put it this way, the most I'll accept is him leaving Wonder Woman, and I think we all are fine with that. But anyway,
he'll find time. He probably won't be able to do ongoings anymore. Yeah, but he'll still find time.
Which will be, and he'll take on significantly less projects. I can tell you that much is guaranteed. Because even when he was on your show, he was talking about he takes on way too much stuff.
Oh yeah, even said taking on Trinity was a bit of a mistake.
Yeah, exactly.
For the time reason. I know you'll say for other reasons.
There are a lot of different reasons why that series is a mistake, brother.
Right.
But yeah, so I'm like, okay, it's like I'm interested to see what they do. And let me put it this way. I am glad that Kara's getting her comeuppance, her deservance, because it was very comforting that when Zaslav said the 4 pillars of DC, it was, yeah. Oh, okay, and by the way, Brandon, he's not getting 100 issues.
Yeah, it's not likely. It's very not likely.
30 to 50 is the max. In that window, he leaves because the way sales are, and if they keep dropping like this, eventually DC's gonna go, okay, we're done.
Yeah, I mean, he might get lucky, but that's not a guarantee.
Like this way, it's significant. Again, 50 is the ceiling I think he gets to.
Yeah,
if sales stay in. Obviously, if sales pick up and he like dramatically turns it around, that's another story. But
yeah, but if he keeps it in the 50 to 100 range, it's going to be 50. Number 50 is when he'll be off by.
Yeah.
And it's going to be a change of leadership and everything.
And trust me, Brandon, I agree with you. Trust me, you've come to the right channel for that. But anyway, back to Watchmen. So
yeah, right.
So it's like, so
I didn't bring up Rorschach.
Yeah, I know. Or Jay Lee.
That was a slog.
Yeah, exactly. Well, yeah, a slog, a Tom King book, a slog. Wait, I actually have a perfect clip for that. Wait, I have a perfect slog. I have a perfect book for that. So you tell me Tom King books are a slog?
Other breaking news: water, wet.
Okay, not all.
Most.
Penguin was still really good.
A good book can also be a slog.
Okay, but I didn't find a slog at all.
Okay, whatever. But anyway, so on to one. So
all right.
It's one of those like because I know that like here's the thing. Moore's problem is that he would rather it not have been adapted. Period.
Oh yeah.
And I go, brother, you can't expect if it sells dramatically well like it eventually did, you can't expect DC to not do that.
You know what the only adaptation of Watchmen he enjoys?
What?
Saturday Morning Watchmen.
That's
you know about that?
No, I didn't know that.
Hold on. I'm gonna send it to you, and you can. This is a fan animation, so you can share it.
So wait, someone made a fan-made animation of Watchmen.
That was a mockery of it.
Oh wow! All right, hang on.
It's basically like this guy got the joke.
All right, here we go.
Oh no, Adrian! Looks like the Reds are polluting the city lake. What do we do?
We call the Watchmen.
Oh my gosh, this is great!
Forever, they're the best of friends. But when trouble's about, you'd best watch out for the Watchmen.
Now is their leader, and he loves to party down. Rorschach's friends to the animals.
Yeah, when he's not clowning around.
Why, nutty!
Beat up some thugs, say no to drugs, be in bed by 10. But if trouble's about, you'd best watch out for the Watchmen.
That is so good. Oh my gosh.
Yep, but now,
fantastic.
Yep. Can anyone in the current stable do? I thought Jeff did justice to it. To be fair, he's not there currently, but I don't think
aside
anyone
from
else.
Jeremy Adams, I love how you say aside from Jeremy Adams because he can do no wrong.
Williamson,
maybe. The problem with what Williamson is that even when he has like a good start, he doesn't stick to landing.
Some KD does. Like, I do still think his Flash stuck to landing.
Pika says Tom King should just be recognized for doing short stories. If his long runs have turned into slop, then he shouldn't be given long runs. Yeah. And
I still say 12 issues is still too long for his stuff. It should be 6.
But let me put it this way. He works best if a story has a set end, he has to end it in a certain amount of issues. That's it. When it's like long runs, it's like, what the hell am I reading? You're not Jonathan Hickman.
Exactly. That's why I keep saying no. 6 is his best. Rarely is his 12. Like, his 12 issues are more misses than hits.
Yeah, exactly. But it's like, so with this, it's like, so let me ask you this. So which of these do you prefer, the live action movie or the animated movie?
Live action overall, but like I said, I'm not against this existing.
Me neither.
Yeah, this is not a case of like, oh, why does it's like, no. Like I said, it gives us a different shade, side of things, something a little more accurate. And like I said, with the exception of the psychiatrist, it fills in gaps that Zach didn't.
Yeah, exactly. And it helps that it was divided into 2 parts so they could fit more of the graphic novel in there.
Exactly. Now, of course, again, there's still some elements from Zach he kept, like Dan being there when Rorschach got kablooied.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, in the original book, you and Laurie were already off banging.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. Hey, what's up, Sean Franklin? Yeah, so it's one of those occasions where it really adds to it as opposed to subtracts to it, and it's not like you guys can have a preference in terms of which thing that you like
And one other thing that Zach was able to do is, at least as a documentary, the Under the Hood book. So he actually did some of the ancillary stuff.
Yeah, and again, and what Zach did is that in the ultimate cut, he like fits in the Black Freighter stuff.
No, I'm talking about the documentary, the faux documentary that's included in the special features.
Oh, okay.
I takes some of the ancillary stuff in here to fill in gaps. Basically, they do a documentary style of the original Night Owl's, book Under the Hood.
Okay, that makes sense. I like that.
Yeah, do we have it? You gotta ask.
Yeah, I get the feeling every comic book person has this on their shelf.
Or some variation. This or the compact. There's a reason why that was one of the first compacts.
Yeah, you had to know that when they announced the compact editions, they were getting that in Kingdom Come. I knew that it was inevitable when they would be in the compact edition.
Like I said, we agreed the voice acting is good, but it's because they have professional voice actors. But at the same time, again, multiple voices. Like again, you're having just multiple actors having to do so many different roles.
And no, I haven't played the game. I didn't even know there was a game.
It's boring, unfortunately, because this was not the original game that was going for it.
Yeah, the live action movie really.
Yes.
Yeah, it did. It did. I do agree with that. That was something really good. I love that.
Yeah, but I was saying no. Originally, the original Watchmen game was doing very well, but the studio fell apart, so they had to go with someone else who just made a generic beat 'em up. That 3D beat 'em up, which is good, but it's better when you have two people, and you can tell it was rushed.
Yeah, Brandon says Snyder shows his technical prowess in the visuals, but I still prefer the animated unless the ultimate cut. Yep, that I understand that, and that works because it's like the ultimate cut like factors all this stuff in there. And again, that's one of the advantages of Zach's movies is that he does well when it comes to the ultimate editions. Question: I'm not much of a Watchmen person, but from what I heard, do you guys believe in Rorschach's beliefs? I think he's a little too pessimistic.
Yeah, a bit too pessimistic, And again, remember, he's broken.
Yeah, and he is a bit like loopy when it comes to like conspiracy theories and stuff. So I'm like this way, he is in many ways the question from Justice League Unlimited. Like he would believe there's an alternate universe where Superman killed people.
Exactly. But yeah, basically the original plan would have various gameplay styles. It would have followed the Watchmen team or the Minutemen as they impacted historical events. And they also, another idea they had would have been an open world third person adventure. Something big and focused revolving on Rorschach. But Bottle Rocket, it was not a stable company.
I see.
So Bottle Rocket did collapse because basically it was a company that was built up by Hollywood financiers and everything.
Okay, yeah, that's never good.
Yeah, but unfortunately they tried to get things started up with a few, tie-in games and all that. Yeah. And they originally, actually, the other thing they were doing stuff for Brash Entertainment, which was Brash was the one who were doing it, not Bottleneck. Brash was doing it. They fell under, and when they fell under, then Bottle Rocket lost their funding, and then we had to get the one we ended up getting.
Yeah, exactly.
Now they had the actors for Night Owl and Rorschach, reprise, so there's that, but still, just it's not the greatest.
The other thing I do like about this story is that as it moves on, is that when you get to the end of Vietnam, and then you see the whole scene with like Blake killing a pregnant woman, and then Manhattan's like, you shot her, and then comedian's like, yeah, you could have stopped me. And
that's right from the book. Yep.
Yeah. Why did you just stand there?
Oh yeah, you just stood there. God, you're really losing your humanity.
Yeah, exactly. And so why do you think Dr. Manhattan started to slowly lose his humanity?
Disconnected. Richie, he had it because it was basically seeing all this stuff. And I think also in part was he already knew it was coming. Remember, he's able to witness everything at once. So he already knew he was destined to become that way.
Yeah, so it's probably like he knows how. It's probably like honestly he's bored because there's no surprises. He knows what's gonna happen.
A little bit of boredom, but I also think it's just more of a case of just. It's kind of like Night Owl. No, Nightman, Owlman.
Oh yeah, it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. Yeah, it's like, but it wasn't until with Laurie, him finding out that the astronomical odds that her mother and the comedian, after everything that happened to get together, and then just because of that, eventually led to her being conceived and being born, and just the whole fact that, obviously the whole miracle of birth, the chances of you being created when someone else could have been created and all that stuff, reopened his eyes.
Mhm.
That's when he finally did that. And but too little, too late.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it was a slow burn like thing. Yeah, I got it.
By the time we got to the present day, it had already happened.
Yeah, okay, I see. So it was like a long process going back years and stuff.
The fact that originally he wore a whole outfit and the trunks and everything, and then eventually why do I need it?
Yeah, it's like well, it's kind of funny. At first he wore like a tank top and trunks, and then it was just trunks, and then it was like nothing.
Why do I need anything?
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
The other thing the animated movie got is like the nightmare scene with Night Owl and Spectre on Mars, and they actually tear their skin off and they're in their costumes, because they didn't do that in the movie. In the movie, it just cuts and then they're naked.
And they did because they did the whole hallelujah thing just to satisfy the executives.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's one where I don't blame Zach for, because even he didn't want to do that, and they're like, do it. He's like, okay, I'll make it as disturbing and cringe as possible.
Yeah, that's what it's not necessarily my fault.
Yep, hallelujah. And then having the right at the climax, pun intended, they have the
flamethrower go off.
The fire go off.
Yeah, I'm like that's so good.
Oh God.
That is so good. And I love how he's like, let's go break out Rorschach. And she's like, are you kidding? Are you crazy? He goes,
I still love the bit though of him being down in the cave naked. I like that a bit better. Him being there and they're like, I must look pretty Devo.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
I kind of like that bit, just like, I must look pretty Devo. Ah!
I like where he where Manhattan teleports Laurie to the Mars, and then he forgets that she can't breathe. He goes, "Oh, sorry." These types of things seem to slip my mind.
Yep. Now I gotta say, as much as I didn't care for the lead up with the Doomsday Clock that Rebirth did, because they totally dropped a lot of it, but a lot of the stuff they did for the lead up didn't make sense. Like, why would Manhattan blow up, explode, Owlman and Metron or Pandora? Didn't make sense. But
well,
I think
in addition to that, they left out okay, so why all of a sudden is there a Superman theory going around?
Well, that was, I think, more something that the other writers could have set up but didn't.
Maybe Jeff should have?
Well, yeah. But yeah.
It just starts and it's like in the middle of it, and I go, where the hell did this come from?
Yeah, but then we find out there's some truth to it.
Mm-hmm.
Because apparently, Firestorm was actually true.
Yeah, which I'm like, okay, I get that, but you could have set that up a little better.
Well, I agree with that, but what I'm saying though is that but I think Jeff got Manhattan back on track in this book compared to the build-ups.
Yeah, and I did also really like the way the way that like the comedian came back, is that it was Manhattan saving him from the moment he was falling, and then later he just puts him back in there.
That made, I'll be honest though, comedian's involvement made no sense in the it was pointless in the end.
Well, yeah, but
I wouldn't say it didn't make sense, but it was pointless in the end. It amounted to nothing.
The other part that just happened off panel is that all of a sudden the Amazons show up and take Diana back to the island, and I go, what? Yeah, and then this was also the book that originally made Wonder Woman immortal. Like they said, she served in the Justice Society. Thank you, Mark Waid, for undoing this.
Yep. But I do like the whole idea of the metaverse that is introduced. The idea that everything is progressing and changing, and that Superman's origins are always going to change.
Well, it explains why we keep getting it's like an in-continuity reason why we keep getting Superman origin stories.
Exactly. By the way,
Oh, you got that.
it came with the Absolute Edition.
Oh, cool.
Yep, right down to this detail. Up the light. Ah, she's stupid. It says John and Jenny.
Oh, okay, that's cool. That's cool.
Yep.
But
because remember, now that's another weird thing. How is Manhattan dropping this everywhere step he took? That made no sense.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, what? There were a lot of things in Doomsday Clock that you were just supposed to accept and just say, just keep reading, just keep reading.
Yeah.
And I go, that doesn't really help. I'm just like.
And also, Manhattan should not be able to know what happens in the rest of the universe beyond his point of view.
Yeah, because isn't it like he has to actually be present because he's seeing everything that happens in his immediate vicinity at all times, right?
Yeah, exactly. Or stuff that he picked up at that point in time.
But it's like the way he can like see like the gay actor, if you will, all the time. I'm like, you weren't even there.
Well, no, in those cases, that's what to be implied that he was there for those meetings. You know, the ones when he's actually like, oh, come on, John. But yeah, the other ones, I think Jeff misinterpreted the whole. I think he took what was the case of John clearly heard the news and is referencing it and took it as omnipresence.
Yeah, or it's like he misinterpreted it's March 1985 and this happens.
Yeah, but I think it's a bit more, like I said, the whole John is clearly, he was told this or he knew this and he's pointed out in retrospect. And I think Jeff took that as, oh yeah, he knows everything that's happening.
Yeah, exactly. That's not really the way that works.
Exactly.
I do find it hilarious how, speaking of delays, how delayed Doomsday Clock was.
Oh yeah. And again, big thing. Was it all Jeff? Was it also Gary?
I get the feeling it was a healthy mix of both.
Yep. Also, Gary Frank really nailed the Gibbons-ness of it.
Yeah, he gets, if there's one artist that like aligns the best with the Gibbons art style, it is Gary Frank.
Fabok could have been too, but Fabok would have been even later.
Oh yeah, Fabok would have been even more delayed. I'm like, all right, there you go. But all in all, it's like, it's a great story, but it's like, this is the interesting thing. It's, Eobard Thawne called him God when he said, I saw God. Isn't he aware of the presence? He should be.
No, doesn't mean no. Not everyone's aware of the presence.
No, but I mean, it's like he referred to Dr. Manhattan as God. It's like
not everyone calls the presence and God the presence.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and again, not everyone is aware of the presence. So why? It's even existing? So why wouldn't he think of Manhattan as a god?
Yeah, that's true.
I think that's a case of just assuming because we know it, everyone knows it.
The funny thing about the button, by the way, is that it just happens. It's like to explain what that button is, but then it's never addressed ever again.
Until Doomsday Clock, at least making it be a point.
Yeah, but I'm like, it's amazing. You can tell how early in Rebirth the plan changed because ultimately there was a certain point where we never saw that blue glow ever again.
Well, and again, you had I think the earliest was the Justice League of America bit where they completely retconned the dialogue between the atoms.
When was that?
That was in Justice League of America when they introduced that title and everything after
Suicide Squad.
Yeah, the Suicide Squad event, and they completely changed the dialogue between the atoms to drop the Manhattan thing.
Yeah, exactly, and obviously when Wally got the blue powers, that was another thing.
Oh, that was much late. That was after this and all that.
Yeah, but again, it's like now it's like reference. Oh yeah, Dr. Manhattan showed up. It's not necessarily like everything in that book.
Unfortunately, it became a footnote.
Yeah, because when you think about it, being like Dr. Manhattan invading the DC universe should not be a footnote.
Nope. Yeah, especially with how much drastic change he did. Now, I did like it was just one change.
Mm-hmm. Superman.
Green Lantern.
Oh yeah, he just changed one thing.
It was just Green Lantern, and because of that, the JSA didn't form, and without the JSA, Superman wasn't as competent, which then led to what happened with Superman.
Yeah. So in other words, it's like, so for those that don't know, what would have happened was, so Barry goes back in time, Flashpoint happens, and then as he's going, so at the end of Flashpoint, he undoes what he did, and the universe, according to Doomsday Clock in this book, was supposed to go back to normal, but Dr. Manhattan tweaked some things.
Yeah, he just nudged the Green Lantern away from Alan Scott's hand, so he died in the crash.
Yeah, exactly. And NJ says you would think Thawne has seen it and knows almost everything, considering he's basically immortal. Not necessarily. Not necessarily.
Not the only thing. Remember this: that most people know about the presence is the hand at the start of time.
Yeah, that's it. And I don't even think that they like identified that as the presence. It's
now definitely Pandora.
It's like
Pandora. Perpetua.
It's like, I remember there was a time when people were theorizing that was going to be Manhattan. He was creating the DC universe.
Yeah, but yeah, like again, the presence. I do think you're giving things a little too much credit. And again, I'm not trying to be, Yeah.
Speaking of that, speaking of that, don't we believe that the whole Doomsday Clock was planned, or did it just fit into continuity?
Initially, it was planned, but the delays and everything and tweaking of
because what happened is that
becoming the bigger name.
This was supposed to be the main event.
Scott.
This was supposed to be the main event of Rebirth. Just what happened is that it got delayed too much, so DC had to move on with the book. So they're like, okay, we'll make it a footnote. Scott, what do you got? Death metal? Okay.
Yeah.
That's how that turned out. So in a way, death metal was the main event of Rebirth.
Exactly.
And I'm okay.
But to be fair, it looks like the presence has kind of been replaced by the source, the hands.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And that was also in Death Metal.
Yeah. So it does feel like the presence might still be there. I still say the presence is the boss of the hands. Just like he's the boss of the Spectre, but for the most part, again, most people don't know about him. NJ, like I said, just because we know about it, just because some characters interact with it, doesn't mean that everyone is aware and would be like, "Wait, that's not the presence." No, why would they?
And then Brandon says it's amazing Jeff is keeping up with Ghost Machine for now.
That's where his heart is.
Yeah, I mean, I wish they would bring back Rook.
Well, again, give Fayback time.
Yeah, I know, but it's like here's the problem with the amount of with the length of the break they're taking. Eventually, people are going to forget about it.
I think so. As long as they have the other books out, I think that's what's keeping people's attention.
Yeah, that's true.
But like I said, but again, with Doomsday Clock, I think though it's still going to get remembered eventually.
Yeah, it still is, because
not to the level of Watchmen.
Not to the level of they were originally intending it to be, definitely. I mean, both Lucifer and Michael can easily destroy Dr. Manhattan, and both are below.
That's Vertigo. You're thinking Vertigo stuff.
Yeah. Not everything in Vertigo is canon to DC Comics.
And even if it is, most people don't touch that because, one, they don't want to get that religious.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. Because that's a thing there. I really dislike when characters in story arcs act like they know out of story. Yeah, exactly. Because that gets a little bit like, where did you learn this?
That's because, and that's where some people get that mistake. Like I said, with Manhattan, I can understand why Jeff Johns made that mistake. It's easy to make that mistake.
Mm-hmm.
I'm surprised he made that mistake, but still.
Yeah, because you would think he would. So.
But like I said, I can get why they made it. But again, yeah, NJ, this stuff does exist, but it doesn't mean that, one, people want to touch it. Two, that's making a lot of assumptions that they could just easily destroy Manhattan.
Yeah, exactly. So it's there are very, very, very few characters that could easily destroy Dr. Manhattan.
Well, Manhattan at its peak, obviously.
At his peak, yeah, exactly.
Yep, and again, Lucifer. I mean, okay, yeah, Lucifer is and interacts with Constantine, but even he is not that all powerful in some interpretations in DC alone.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
So, yeah, and again, the presence doesn't make himself that, or whatever you call it.
He doesn't really get involved in stuff that much, so it's like, why do you
think he has the Spectre?
Yeah, not gonna lie, I always thought the Spectre was the most powerful person, along with the Phantom Stranger and Darkseid. Phantom Stranger is not like this god being that people think he is.
No, he's not. All the Phantom Stranger is that he can interact with these beings, but his power is not that almighty.
And NJ says, I'm not religious at all, but King did hint that Zeus and the Greek gods are better than Christ.
Okay. That's their ego.
That's their ego. So it's like, but it's in character. So it's like,
I mean, Rob Liefeld did a story where the Greek gods came to Jesus during the crucifixion and then mocked him, and Jesus ripped his hands off and was ready to fight them.
God damn.
Of course, it would end up being a dream, but still.
And didn't the X-Men comics in the Krakoa age like make Jesus a mutant?
Oh God. Okay, but yeah, okay. Here's what it says for the powers and ability of Phantom Stranger: immortality, magic, which includes dimensional travel, eldritch blast, spectral sight, illusion casting, transmutation, and all that. Hand-to-hand combat. But his weakness includes a non-direct interaction, vulnerable to magic, talkative.
Talkative, I love
but
that.
Again, he has never been uber powerful. He's been able to interact with these people. Mm-hmm. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
He can talk. That his big thing is to talk to the Spectre and talk him out. That's what. How many times did the Spectre threaten to obliterate him? So many times.
Yeah, exactly. But
because he can.
Did you read the most recent Green Lantern?
Yep.
And he fights the Spectre. I love that.
Now, people might complain about that. Again, Spectre has been known to be wild without a host. Now, whatever happened to Crispin Allen, I don't know.
And it's like, then you're dealing with Hal Jordan, who is like the most willpower of the willpower of Green Lantern.
He was able to kill Krona.
Yeah, so it's like, that's believable and such. And again, he's not focused. That's what people have to remember.
And again, he was once the Spectre.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you might not remember everything.
I recall when the Amazo stole Spectre's power and absolute power.
That can happen. If they can steal magic, they can steal the Spectre's power.
Yeah, which there are a lot of problems I have with absolute power. But anyway, when the Phantom Stranger is still Judas, that suggests that Jesus exists.
That's one of his stories. That was his New 52 origin, definitely. But
they haven't really done an origin for him in a while.
The first time besides New 52, the other time they did was actually 4 origins. He was the Wandering Jew. He was a scientist, and everything, all that. Now, okay, just because Phantom Stranger is power up the quintessence doesn't mean he's all powerful. He's in that more for the his knowledge and viewpoints and everything. Because when you look at it, Gansett, Era, Zeus, Highfather, Phantom Stranger, Spectre, and the Wizard, all various levels of powers. Oh, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. So by the way,
are they equally as powerful? No.
By the way, Robert, so you know what's kind of funny? When I was reading the most recent Green Lantern issue, I was like, oh wow, when Zariel showed up.
Yep.
Because I hadn't seen him in so long.
Great. Now, just to make this clear, can the Spectre take out, say, Highfather or Zeus? He could, but he won't be allowed to.
Mm-hmm.
That's something people have to remember. The Spectre is limited.
Yeah. Again, it's like he's essentially God's punishment. You have to do something worthy of that level of punishment.
And Trigon beneath.
Oh yeah, definitely beneath.
Again, the Spectre is restrained on limitation. Like, I still remember during the Will Pfeiffer Richard, a case of Will Pfeiffer doing something good, the Spectre Crisis Aftermath, which was Crispin Allen getting adjusted to being the new Spectre. And one of the bits he had was, he saw someone ready to shoot a man's ready to shoot a woman, and he tried to stop it. And the Spectre said, "What you're doing is doing this for the right reason, perhaps the noblest of reason, but that's not why we're here. We can't do vengeance unless she dies."
Yeah.
And so when she dies, then he kills him, because that's the problem. He can't do anything.
Yeah, exactly.
And there are times where the Spectre tried to take out Necron. He couldn't.
Yeah, exactly. People forget that a lot of these wait, now I wish Wonder Woman would be up to Spectre like hell. She
Why?
did though.
Wait, when?
Or at least she fought the Spectre in the Infinite Frontier thing, right?
I gotta double check that.
I mean, I know she was traveling throughout the multiverse with the Spectre.
What did the Spectre?
I
have to read through those things.
I'm pretty sure it was the Spectre, at least the special one of them.
Again, but like I said, just to make that clear, that the quintessence is just a cabal of individual, powerful or wise, or
it's like Marvel's Illuminati. Think about it that way.
Yeah, they're not all equal power. They're not all equal power.
They're just there because they represent certain parts of the universe.
Yep. Highfather represents the new gods. Shazam represents magic. Hera represents the Greek gods.
Old gods.
Wait, why is Hera and Zeus both there? Well, they rotate. No, they rotate. They rotate Hera and Zeus.
Okay, gender equality?
No, I say they rotate Hera and Zeus. Sometimes it's Zeus, sometimes it's Hera.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, but then you have, and the Phantom Stranger represents, or the Spectre represents, God's wrath. Ganseth the Green Lantern and the Guardians, and the Phantom Stranger is kind of more of like, he's the closest to humanity of the bunch. By comparison, but he's the weakest of them. Hands down, exactly. He's the weakest of them all.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, does that put Hera on par with Spectre? No, definitely not.
Because she's not. I like Hera, but she's not that powerful.
And Zeus, no. Spectre can just wipe out Zeus, but gods of that level are off limits usually. Otherwise, Spectre would have taken him out long ago.
Yeah, because I'm convinced that it probably has something to do with like some type of power balance.
Exactly. It's like why you can't take out Galactus.
Yeah, because he does serve a role, and it's like it's not necessarily a bad role if you move him to like non-occupied worlds.
Yep, and again, it's the reason why that restriction's on there. Otherwise, we'll have another Sodom and Gomorrah.
Yeah, and you do not want that.
You do not want that. That's why do you think the Spectre goes after individuals, mostly goes after individuals. Now we see what happens when he goes nuts, destroying Atlantis.
Yeah.
But that was the case where, and the reason why God didn't intervene, here's another example. God didn't intervene until he took out Dr. Fate. And as Detective Chimp put it best, I get it. You made him the dog bark so loud the master finally came in, woke up, came out and put him on a leash. So the fact that the Spectre had wiped out so much magical stuff, but it took going after the most powerful Naboo to finally get the Presence attention. That tells you how little the Presence pays attention.
Yeah, he doesn't. Because case in point, there are very few stories when the Presence even makes his, for lack of a better term, presence known.
Yep, and again, look at what we found out happened at with the Great Darkness. The Presence delegated that. Again, we're just pointing out at the facts from what we know. So we get where you're going with some of these questions, NJ. All right, and they're good discussions to bring up. They are, but they're simple answers.
Yeah, it is really a few things. It's not everything has this like deep reasoning for it.
Yep. Can Hera in actual? No.
And actual mythology destroy the whole universe?
No, she's nowhere. No. First of all, you gotta remember about the Greek gods. They're not what were the ones above them? They're not Titans.
Yeah. Even in actual mythology, they weren't that powerful. Well, here's the thing. The one that could justify that you could make the argument is Zeus, because he's the god. He was the king of the gods and was the most powerful.
And he created Hera. Technically, Hera is also. Let's not get into that.
Well, yeah, exactly.
Let's not get into that. But yeah, Zeus he's the one who took down Kronos and the other Titans
with the help of the other gods. But still, it's like he's the one we could justifiably say maybe he could destroy the world.
Maybe, but the universe, no. And even then, why did they stop the Titans? That doesn't make them more powerful than the Titans. It's because the Titans got lax. They got lazy. They were caught off guard.
Yeah, exactly. And
it's
then
it's like in Dragon Ball Z's Resurrection F. We find out as powerful as a Super Saiyan Blue can be, you catch them off guard. They don't have their defenses up. A simple blaster can take them out.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not kidding on that. You know that? A simple ring blaster from a bad guy shooting Goku in the back almost killed him.
That's kind of cool. I like that.
He didn't have his defenses.
Yeah, that actually works really well. All right, so I think it's a good place to leave it. So the way I would rate this movie, I give it a solid 8 out of 10.
I would agree with that. It was a solid. And I'll say this: JMS was a good tap. Because he did some of the better before Watchmen books.
And he's a good writer, period. So it's
yeah.
And by the way,
NJ, not what station.
Yeah, I would say that's probably accurate, because they were the Trinity, if you will, of the three. So you would assume that they're justifiably in terms of power distribution.
But again, you also take other factors into account.
Yeah, exactly. But so Robert, where can we find you and what we got coming on the channel?
Link down below. Finished up Blackest Night Week, and I got a couple more videos in the can, and I'm going to be recording a few others. And I will eventually be getting back to some gaming. I didn't do it this week because, I find doing a stream the same day I have a premiere doesn't work.
Mm-hmm. For me, it's so. At 9 p.m. tonight, Britt and I will be going live for Super Wonder Legacy, where we compare Superman, Wonder Woman to Nightfire and Nightwing, Batgirl. So we're going to be talking about both. And on obviously tomorrow, I'm going to be doing my Wonder Woman Q&A. I still have to think about what I want to do for Wonder Woman Wednesday. But for Under Two Capes next week, we're going to be discussing the many Superman knockoffs from Marvel. So Sentry, Hyperion, Gladiator, those types of characters. So I will hopefully see you guys at 9. Stay heroic. Remember, Lois Lane is Lois Lane. She belongs to General Zod. And Steve Trevor, Steve Never. He belongs 2,500 feet in the ground. Zoe is the Max about for life. I'll see you later. Bye-bye.